Hello there and welcome to another Bobeats synthesizer review. Today we are checking out the Taiga keyboard from Pittsburgh Modular. The Taiga keyboard is a semi-modular analog synth, which means that you can patch different parts of the synth together using patch cables. It's also a combination of West Coast and East Coast style synthesis. So it has the analog oscillators, it has a nice filter section, but also wave folders and a dynamics module, so not just a VCA, but also a Lowpass Gate, and we'll dive into what that means later in today's video. I'm gonna do a real deep dive into what's a Lowpass Gate, what does it do, and does it make any sense on a synth like this? This synth also has something that we haven't seen on any other keyboard synthesizer that I know of, and that's the ability to add your own custom eurorack modules. These two modules doesn't come with the unit, I've added them myself, and you can add whatever eurorack modules you want to expand the Taiga keyboard. There's also one thing that I don't like with this synthesizer, and we're gonna talk about that later in today's video. So a big thank you to Pittsburgh Modular for sending over the Taiga keyboards. I could make this here video for you all. And also a big thank you to DistroKid for sponsoring today's videos. If you want to upload some of that sweet music you've been making, make sure you go and check out DistroKid. It's a service that lets you upload music to Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal and other stores. Quite affordable, you pay once a year, unlimited amounts of uploads, and if you use my link in the description, you get a discount, and you also support the channel, so go and check it out. I'm trying hard these days to include song demos in my reviews, but there has been reasons why I haven't in the past. I think that song demos can be misleading, just like a great piano player can make any piano, even a toy piano, sound kinda nice. So when I make a song demo, I focus hard not so much on the production or the actual song, but rather capturing what the synth sounds like. When the Taiga first arrived, I didn't know what to expect. How would it feel? And I'm happy to say that it actually feels quite premium. The synth is heavy, it feels very durable, and the knobs are nice. Now, whether or not you like the color scheme, well, that's up to you, but I quite enjoy it. So if you've seen the Taiga before, it's basically the same synth. You have the three oscillators here, analog oscillators. You have fine-tuning, you have frequency modulation for them, you have the three wavefolders, which sets it apart from other analog synths. You can modulate the wavefolders. Now in terms of sound, you can definitely make your traditional East Coast sounds with the Taiga. But because we have the wavefolders here and the ability to patch, you can take it further than your typical analog synths. And we can modulate the shape using an LFO. Maybe dial it back a bit, introduce oscillator number 3. Modulate oscillator number 3's shape, so the wave folder, using the sample and hold. Or why not hard sync two of the oscillators together using the sine output here, and we could take ADSR out here into, say, the FM of that oscillator that we're hard syncing. Increase the glide. This is the 9th year of me making videos about synths, and I will say that this is one of the most flexible oscillator sections that I've ever come across. And the reason why is because not only do you have multiple different waveforms here to pick from, you push this button here and you can see we're cycling through. And there's not just sine, triangle, saw, and square, there are these combined waveforms as well. So we have this saw and square hybrid, and we just turn up the wave folder. For example, you get a super beefy sound, turn it up some more and we get this. There's the mixer section with the levels for the 3 oscillators, there's noise, and over here we have a preamp, so you can take, for example, the mix, so all of the oscillators here, into the preamp, and then go preamp into the filter, and there's also 2 LFOs here. The LFOs also have 2 different speed modes. You just hit edit and octave here to change, you can see here, change the speed. So then we have the filter. This is another thing that sets it apart from other analog synths. We have frequency, resonance, we have 2 controls here for it. So it's normal, I believe this one is normal to the ADSR, so ADSR to filter, and then you have this one which is normal to the mod wheel here. But you can also patch them using the patch bay. And the filter is very unique. It's a variable state filter, so you can go from low pass to combinations of low pass and band pass to high pass and band pass to high pass. You see what I'm doing here. It's very unique. It's not something that you find on a lot of synths, and it's one of the things that definitely sets the Taiga apart from something like, say, a Moog Subsequent 37, for example. And the filter sounds like this. It's very smooth. And my favorite filter mode is this low pass and band pass mode, just a bit of resonance or quite a lot, and then we use the ADSR here to the filter. We have 2 envelopes, and I will say, and this is very much a taste thing, that I'm not a big fan of them. If I increase the attack, I have to like turn it up all the way here to get a really long attack. But if I increase the release instead, if I just turn it up a bit like this, it's super long. So I don't know, it feels like when would you ever have it up here? It's never ending. So, I mean, maybe it's a good thing, maybe not. It's something that probably has its purpose, and it's something that some of you will like, and I personally don't really like it. And then we come to what I think is the most interesting thing with this entire synth, and maybe I'm a bit nerdy here, but this is Pittsburgh Modular's take on the Lowpass Gate. So it's a VCA, but it's also a low-pass gate, which is a combination of a VCA and a low-pass filter.
And just to give an example of what the low-pass gate does really well in terms of sound design, it's these shorter, pluckier sounds, bass sounds, or percussive sounds.
I will do a deep dive later in the video explaining why this matters. And then we come to my least favorite thing, the Bucket Brigade delay, which, yeah, the problem is it doesn't sound that good. And for a synth like this, I think a reverb would have made more sense. But the way to get around the fact that the delay isn't that great is that you have this slot here. And this lets you add your own eurorack modules. Customizing the Taiga keyboard with your own eurorack modules is as easy as just removing this piece of metal here. And then you have this space here. And my first little build here is adding more modulation options. And the lack of more utility modules is something I critiqued the original Taiga for, because instead of the echoes, I would have loved more modulations, not just the two envelopes, because you kind of need them for the dynamics module and the filter. And then you have the two LFOs, sure, but I would have loved something more advanced. You also have this multi-output here that you can set up to do different things. You have a few other options in terms of modulation, but I would have loved even more. And I did notice that with this particular module setup, I couldn't get this hole here to align 100% properly with the rail. Whether or not it's like the div kit that is just like a millimeter or just a fraction of a millimeter too wide, or if it's something with the rail, can't say. This is like a very early unit also, so there are some things that aren't 100% on it that I know about. So yeah. So I'm going to start by clocking the Metamorph, and over here we have the clock button. You can press it to get a really fast clock or just go very slow. And then I'm going to go CV out here from the first line here into the shape of one of the oscillators. And let's go the third CV out into frequency, controlling the filter. And we can try and go duophonic, velocity CV out into, say, pitch here of the third oscillator, I believe. So a good thing to note here is that while we do have a lot of patch points, it's a fairly simple patch point setup. It's basically the inputs and outputs for the various modules, the mixer, the filter, and ADSRs and so on. So in other words, it's a fairly straightforward, easy to use patch bait, but it also lacks a few things that I would have loved to see. For example, patching in an envelope to control the LFO and stuff like that. I think that adding effects modules is an obvious choice, and here are just two that I like a lot. It's the Ghost from Andrew Huang and Endorphins, as well as Hue from Modbap Modular. And a neat thing with the Taiga is that while the signal path is mono, you do have in, left, and right here. So I've gone out from the dynamics module here into the Hue, into the Ghost, and then stereo out from the Ghost in here. So I can control the level still here. And it sounds something like this. And the way to think about the Taiga keyboard is not as a gateway into modular. Instead, you could be interested in just buying this as a keyboard synthesizer and actually buy a few modules just specifically to use with the Taiga, kind of building it up, customizing it to your own liking. And I think that that's actually really fun and interesting. It doesn't have to mean that you then add on more cases and more modules, even though it's a possibility. So yeah, don't go and buy a ton of modular on credit, okay? And then we have the keyboard and enclosure, which I think if it's not exactly the same as the Nifty keys, it's definitely very similar. And the Keybed feels okay. It's nothing fantastic, but it's not bad. It's pretty good. And it has aftertouch, and you can patch it over here. It also has an arpeggiator, which is also programmable, so you can program in your own little arpeggio. You also have the ability to turn this into a duophonic synthesizer using the Velocity CV output, and here's a few sound examples. Now I do have a bit more to share about the synth here, but first a quick word from today's sponsor, DistroKid. Releasing your music shouldn't be difficult, and using DistroKid is super easy and is a fast and reliable way of getting your tracks onto Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal and other relevant stores. And one thing that I really like is that you pay once a year and then you can upload unlimited amounts of music. One feature that I really like is the hyperfollow feature. So when you've uploaded your music, you get a custom page. DistroKid does this automatically. On that page are links to where people can find your music in different stores. You can just share that one link instead of sharing like multiple links to different stores. So it's just a place where everything's gathered. So if you want to go and check out DistroKid, use my link in the description. You not only support my channel, but you also get a discount. So go and check it out. The Dynamics module is one thing that sets the Taiga apart from other analog keyboard synthesizers. To understand the Dynamics module, we're starting off with a sawtooth. Notice how when the sound decays, it keeps all of its higher frequencies. The brightness of the sound is maintained as the level goes down, and we can hear it as I turn up the Dynamics knob. The sound doesn't get brighter the more I turn it up, it just gets stronger. And we can compare this with the Lowpass Gate. As the sound decays, the higher frequencies are also being cut off because the Lowpass Gate is a combination of a VCA and a low-pass filter. We can hear it. If we turn it up, note how muted the sawtooth is. And the more I turn it up, the more higher frequencies we hear. And when I turn it down, I'm also closing the filter. Now for the low-pass gate modes, we also have response, and we can listen to what it does. It's easier to hear with a very short decay.
So as you can hear, the response knob controls the decay of the sound, how it kind of rings out.
Now the filter part of the Dynamics module also has resonance. And turning it up makes the difference very noticeable. So if we switch back to the VCA mode, we turn down the decay, we get a really plucky sound, but in the low-pass gate mode, we not only get a very plucky sound, we also get a very resonant sound. Now another thing that also determines the sound of the Dynamics module is this knob here. Turning up this knob determines how much we open up the filter when we're playing. So now that we know what a low-pass gate is technically, the real question is it something you can pick up on in a more full-sounding patch? And to explore that, I made a couple of different patches to show you kind of the difference between just using a regular VCA for your sound and a low-pass gate.
Notice how this sound has a nice pluck to it, and if I change it from the low-pass gate to a VCA, it will sound quite different. And I found that setting the decay very gently, not a lot of decay on ADSR number 2, really brings out the sound of the low-pass gate. And for the sound, we're not even using the filter yet, so let's introduce that. And let's use ADSR number 1 to control the filter. And now that we've added in a low-pass filter, the difference is more subtle, but it's still there. So while the difference isn't huge, it's still a difference in terms of articulation and detail in the sound.
And here I made another attempt at showing you the difference between the VCA and the dynamics module and why it matters. So here's the sound with the VCA and with the low-pass gate. Last in today's video, I'm going to go over some of my teacher's note. I've already said a few positive and negative things throughout the video, but let me summarize a bit. So firstly, something that I think could be improved upon is that the patch points are a bit basic. Sure, you have this multi-out that you can basically set up to be different things, but as a more advanced user, I would have loved more patch point that lets me get in between things. For example, the LFOs. So we have the outputs of the LFOs here, but there's no input for them. There's no way to actually impact the rate, for example, of the LFO, not that I know of anyway. So for example, being able to modulate the rate of the LFOs using an envelope or some other source, stuff like that would have been really cool to have. Like I said in my Taiga desktop review, I'm not a big fan of the echoes module. It's not just that a bucket brigade delay has its limits, it's that it doesn't really fit, especially with the keyboard here. It doesn't fit with the overall philosophy, I feel. It's very cool to use for certain kinds of sound design, but for a keyboard synth, a reverb, for example, or just a clean delay would have been much better. A stereo delay here would have been nice. And it's also about who this keyboard is for. It's not just for the modular nerds. If you've been looking at the Moog Grandmother, the Matriarch, Matrix Brute, Sub 37, Subsequent 37, this is something to consider as an alternative. And for the keyboard players out there, I don't think that this Echoes module will make a lot of sense. It's more something that makes a lot of sense in a modular environment. But I will say again that the option to add your own modules is actually, it's more groundbreaking than you might think. Like I said earlier in the video, you don't have to dive deep into modular land to just add a few modules to this keyboard. It's a really interesting concept, like customizing your own stage-worthy keyboard synthesizer. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard about that before. And lastly, I'm not a big fan of how the ADSR is tweaked. I can't really explain it technically. It's just that, I don't know, I expect a slightly different behavior when I turn the knobs. Maybe it's something that makes sense on a more West Coast style synth. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe somebody in the comments can correct or explain why I don't enjoy it, but I don't. There's something there that just doesn't work for me. Maybe you don't care, but I wanted to bring it up. So thank you so much for watching today's video. Let me know down in the comments if this is interesting to you or not. And as always, a big thank you for watching, and a big thank you to today's sponsor, DistroKid. So make sure to go and check them out. They're linked in the description. They help keep the lights on here. And as always, have a great day. Talk to you later.